Hello everybody, my name is Mike. I am the Weird Pigeon of Weird Pigeon Productions, and today we're going to be talking about what made The Mandalorian so great and why so many Star Wars fans have really enjoyed it compared to some of the other Star Wars media that's come out recently. And no, I'm not talking about Baby Yoda, even though he is super cute and he's literally on like absolutely everything nowadays. I mean, you can't go online or even go to your local Walmart without seeing his face on something. He is not going to be one of the points in today's film, even though he is super adorable.
Knock it off. I said, shut up. What is that?
I will go ahead and let you know in this video there will be some minor spoilers for the Mandalorian show. We will not be going over anything that has to do with the season finale of season 2. So if you haven't seen that yet, don't worry, this video is not going to contain any spoilers for that, even though it was absolutely amazing. I'll tell you that. It was really, really good. If you have seen it though, I would really appreciate if you didn't include any spoilers in the comments, if you just kept the comments spoiler free for the season finale, just in case people haven't watched it. I would really appreciate that. So to any big Star Wars fan or any Star Wars fan in general, it's no mystery that for the past 20 years, a lot of the movies, shows, and really Star Wars media that's come out has been a bit hit or miss with the Star Wars community and moviegoers in general. It's no doubt that the original trilogy, Star Wars Episodes 4, 5, and 6, have been well loved by the fans. And they're not perfect, but they're definitely some of the best Star Wars that exists out there. It's the original stuff, it has an incredible story, the effects and everything about those films was so far ahead of its time, and they will forever be the best part of Star Wars. They are the classics. But since then, we've gotten a lot of other Star Wars material. We've gotten the prequel trilogy, which came out in the, really late 90s and early 2000s and mid 2000s. I remember I grew up watching the prequels along with the Clone Wars TV show that came out, and to me, that's my Star Wars, and I understand that the prequels really aren't as good as the original trilogy. There's a lot of issues with them, especially the writing.
I don't like sand. It's coarse and rough and irritating, and it gets everywhere.
But because that's what I grew up with, those movies and that show, especially the show, will always be near and dear to my heart. After the prequel era, we get Disney buying the franchise in 2012. And when that happened, there's a lot of excitement around, Star Wars. Are we gonna get more movies? Are we gonna get a theme park? And, we got both of those, but there was also a lot of people who were concerned. What is Disney gonna do with Star Wars? Are they gonna run it into the ground? Are they going to, destroy it, ruin it? There's a lot of fans who are really concerned about these movies, and Star Wars fans can really be some of the hardest fans to please. So it was a pretty tall order for Disney. And when they came out with The Force Awakens back in 2015, it was a pretty solid movie. A lot of fans really enjoyed it. It was a great callback to the original trilogy, to the stuff that, the first generation of fans grew up with. But it really didn't take a lot of risks. It wasn't too groundbreaking as far as the story goes. It was pretty much a rehash of the plot for A New Hope, the original Star Wars. It really relied heavily on nostalgia, and it didn't really push Star Wars in a very creative direction. After that, we got a spin-off film, Rogue One, which I really enjoyed. It got some mixed reviews, but for the majority of people, I think they really enjoyed it. At least Star Wars fans really liked it anyway. I have a few people I know where that's their favorite Star Wars movie is Rogue One, and I'm really excited for the Cassian Andor show coming out in the future. It's supposed to, tie in with Rogue One and all that. And then the next year, we got The Last Jedi, directed by Rian Johnson. And that movie really split a lot of the Star Wars community. And if you just look at, some of the reviews, critics really loved the movie, but the fans and just the moviegoers in general, a lot of them really hated it. I personally didn't really like the Last Jedi and also The Rise of Skywalker as well. And I'm not here to hate on those, films in this video. This isn't what, this video is about. What I do want to talk about though is the fact that it seems The Mandalorian has been able to bring together a lot of Star Wars fans. So many people hated the way that Star Wars was moving with The Last Jedi that they actually were boycotting Star Wars. I really believe Solo, the movie that came after it, the standalone film, suffered greatly because, well, one, we had just gotten, a Star Wars movie a few months before, and two, there wasn't a lot of promotion for the movie, and three, so many fans were so mad at the last movie, they didn't go and see Solo in theaters. And again, if The Rise of Skywalker and The Last Jedi is your favorite Star Wars film, that's awesome. I'm glad you found a piece of Star Wars that you can really enjoy. I know some people as well that, The Last Jedi is their favorite Star Wars film because it's so different from the other ones. But again, so many fans hated the direction that it went, and it really split the community. So what made The Mandalorian so great and so well loved among pretty much everybody who's seen it, compared to some other, massive Star Wars films like The Rise of Skywalker and The Last Jedi? And I really think that it's because not only is, this movie made by people who love Star Wars, which really all the films that have come out have been made by people who love Star Wars. What I think makes this show particularly stand out is the fact that they weren't trying to use Star Wars to inspire the film. They weren't looking to Star Wars for inspiration. They looked at the inspiration for Star Wars. They looked at what inspired George Lucas to, make the original Star Wars and the original trilogy. They looked at what inspired the creator of Star Wars and used that to inspire this show. And to me, that fact kind of grounds this, new show, this new part of the universe in that original Star Wars feel. We get a lot of the same themes, we get a lot of the same cinematography, we get a lot of the same callbacks that are in the original trilogy, but they're able to take the show in a new and creative way that pushes the boundary of, Star Wars storytelling, but gives you the same feel as the originals. And that's really what we're going to be diving into in this video. And I know this isn't the only thing that makes this show great. I could go on and on and on about how they include, a lot of classic designs, aliens, things like that. They have an incredible cast, incredible directors, brand new technology that's groundbreaking, which is something, has been lacking in Star Wars recently that Star Wars is known for, pushing the boundaries of what filmmaking can do. Brand new characters that are amazing, bringing back old loved characters that are incredible, and fleshing out the Star Wars universe. These are all things that add to The Mandalorian that make it great, but that's not what we're going to be talking about in this video. The Mandalorian is a show that is inspired by what inspired Star Wars. And to give you some examples of this, let's take a look at a director by the name of Akira Kurosawa. You may or may not have heard of him. He's a Japanese director. He had a pretty great, long career, and he made a lot of incredible, Japanese films. His cinematography was just amazing, and he inspired a lot of modern day cinema, and even a lot of Westerns, and I'll get more into that further on in the video. Some of the films that really stand out in, inspiring Star Wars would be some of his samurai films. George Lucas took heavy inspiration from one of his films, The Hidden Fortress, which, has two peasants who kind of bicker back and forth. They're a bit of the, comedic relief in the film. And of course those, translate to R2-D2 and C-3PO. And you also have a princess, much like Princess Leia, and you have a samurai, much like, Jedi and Luke Skywalker / Obi-Wan Kenobi. There's still some differences in there, but it's pretty obvious that George Lucas took heavy inspiration from this film when he, made Star Wars. He's even mentioned Akira Kurosawa quite a few times, and that he did take heavy inspiration from him. I mean, even some of the shots in A New Hope are similar to this film. And there's also a lot of inspiration that he took from other, Kurosawa films like Yojimbo, Seven Samurai. These films, these movies, heavily inspired Star Wars, the original Star Wars, and they also heavily inspired the show. The episode Sanctuary in The Mandalorian is incredibly similar to Seven Samurai, where, you have samurai defending this village from raiders. The Mandalorian and Cara Dune join together to defend a village from these, pirate raider people with an AT-ST. It was a really cool episode. But on top of being inspired by Akira Kurosawa, this show takes heavy inspiration from another piece of content that, the original Star Wars took inspiration from, and that would be Sergio Leone's spaghetti western films. Sergio Leone was an Italian director. He made some incredible westerns. You may or may not have heard of them, like The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. It's probably one of the biggest, best, well-loved westerns of all time. But that movie is actually part of a trilogy of films that Sergio Leone made. The first one being A Fistful of Dollars, and the second one being For a Few Dollars More. All three are incredible films. I highly recommend watching them, especially if you like Clint Eastwood. He's in all three. He's the main character, and he plays the man with no name. And if you didn't already know, Boba Fett, the first Mandalorian who was in the original trilogy, is heavily inspired by the man with no name. And if you don't believe me, just look at some of the concept art for Empire Strikes Back and for Boba Fett. It literally shows him wearing a poncho incredibly similar to Clint Eastwood's character, the man with no name. He's known for wearing his, famous iconic poncho. On top of that, Boba Fett, you hear spurs whenever he walks, just like, an old Western cowboy. Same thing with the Mandalorian. Jon Favreau, the creator and producer of the show, actually talked to Pedro Pascal, the person who plays the Mandalorian, and told him to watch Sergio Leone's Dollar trilogy, and especially Clint Eastwood's character, the man with no name, because that's essentially who he'd be playing. And of course, The Mandalorian, the show, is a space western. It's a sci-fi fantasy western show, and it draws heavily from Sergio Leone's western films. And just to kind of further show how directors pull from other directors and from other movies and content that's out there, from generations past, George Lucas not only borrowed from Akira Kurosawa and Sergio Leone, but Sergio Leone also borrowed heavily from Akira Kurosawa. As a matter of fact, Sergio Leone's movie, A Fistful of Dollars, is pretty much an exact copy, sometimes shot for shot, of Akira Kurosawa's movie Yojimbo. So yeah, pretty much there's no new ideas in cinema, even going all the way back to the 60s. Everything's just inspired by and copied from and pulled heavily from, some other content of the past, just, changed a little bit. It's pretty crazy how so many directors and filmmakers that we love today were so heavily inspired by the films of generations past, and how, each generation has its own story, but it's almost like we're pulling from the same story and just changing it a little bit. It's really neat to kind of think about. But what's really cool about The Mandalorian is going back to, Yojimbo and A Fistful of Dollars, there's actually some shots in the episode The Jedi where Ahsoka Tano is going in to fight, the people who are holding that city hostage. Some of those shots in that scene are direct references and shots from Yojimbo and the finale of A Fistful of Dollars as well. Another thing that heavily inspired The Mandalorian, that heavily inspired, the original Star Wars, is the Flash Gordon serials and, the Buck Rogers shows that George Lucas grew up with. These were incredibly low-budget television serial shows. They're really cartoony, kind of goofy, and they kind of had like an enemy of the week or an adventure of the week. And The Mandalorian definitely fits that structure. There is, a continuing story, an overarching story in The Mandalorian, but a lot of the episodes feel like, we have to defeat this villain in this episode. We have to defeat this bad guy or go to this place and do this thing. So really so much of The Mandalorian, everything from its themes, its aesthetic, its, structure, is heavily inspired by what inspired, the original Star Wars, the movies that everybody loves so much. And I do believe the biggest reason this show feels like classic Star Wars is because it takes the ingredients of what made the original great. It creates a new story, but takes those same ingredients and puts it into this. And it gives it that same underlying feel, that same, almost like subconscious aesthetic throughout the whole film that reminds us of those original films that, made everybody fall in love with this universe and this franchise to begin with. And I really think that if more films, sequels and reboots to franchises use this idea of not trying to recreate what was already made, but looking at the inspiration for what was, first created, and taking that inspiration and running with it, creating a new story, creating something exciting, but keeping those same themes. I think if more and more filmmakers used that, we would see a lot more, successful sequels and successful reboots to franchises. And I hope that Disney, taking Star Wars into the future, continues doing this, where they look at the inspiration for Star Wars, maybe even some other films that some of these directors did, and use that style and aesthetic to, inspire further Star Wars content in the future. I think that going forward, that is the way to go with the future of Star Wars, and I think that is what made The Mandalorian so great and well loved with Star Wars fans and really, moviegoers and TV lovers in general. So that's pretty much it for this video. That's all I really want to talk about. If you enjoyed this video, please be sure to subscribe. I have, more videos talking about The Mandalorian and Star Wars coming out pretty soon. This is something I'm super passionate about, and I love kind of talking about some of the behind-the-scenes stuff as well as some of the in-universe stuff as well. So if you're into photography, video, Star Wars, and how those things kind of relate, this is the channel for you. If you enjoyed the video, please leave a like and comment below if I missed anything that inspired the show that also inspired the original trilogy, or just other things that inspired the show, and even what you like about the show. what do you think makes this show so incredible and so well loved with the fans compared to, you know, a lot of other Star Wars content out there? And that's pretty much it for this video. I will see you guys in the next film. Bye.